This is Frankie Lynch, Saturn Girl. Subscribe to my channel. What are you doing with your life if you haven't subscribed? Like the video, comment below. I want to know what you think, and it helps out with the algorithm. But we're having a special little talk today because today Mercury entered Gemini. He'll stay there until the 26th of this month, so later in June. Mercury moves very fast, but this is still a very interesting occurrence. Well, why? Well, because Mercury rules what? Communication, business, speech, thinking, writing, media, even technology and communications technology. Gemini gets its meanings partly from Mercury. So we'll see overlapping with significations here. They're both about media, communication. Gemini rules the organs of speech and speaking ability as well as the hands, right? I always say about Gemini, active hands are also the devil's playthings. They say idle hands are the devil's playthings, but for Gemini, it's busy hands. Because if we're busy, we're probably up to no good, So anyway, as far as the meaning for Mercury entering Gemini, some things I wrote down that are relevant to the moment, communication technologies, as I just said. So we could see thinking and cognitive technologies because Mercury is thinking. Like AI, ChatGPT. I mean, they're already out right now, but certain developments in the technology or new directions, new uses, or a brand new type of technology. We'll see media, arts, expression, announcements, and timely news. Mercury is the messenger of the gods. And Gemini makes sure the message gets delivered, right? We have to remember that Mercury rules Gemini and rules Virgo and is exalted in Virgo. So it's important because these two signs are square. So if you have a mutable sign in your ascendant, then this will indicate angular houses for you, which are very, very potent. They're the most potent houses. So anyway, which does improve communication things. Mercury is very slow in Taurus. I would know. I have Mercury in Taurus natally. It's like Pooh Bear. Think, 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 think. Anyway. We also think of connections because Mercury is the messenger of the gods. He connects things. And Gemini is about inclusion and linking people and things together. I think of it as the sign of relationship, not like Libra, which is about relationships, but Gemini is sort of that linking energy between things. It's the relating force. Now, let's think of some historical developments that correlate with this. So June 13th last year, a Google engineer claimed that one of its AI systems, Lambda, may be sentient. So how did Google react? Well, they placed him on leave. Like, we don't need that right now. We don't need that press. Like, let's sweep this under the rug. But I mean, one of the people on that Google project came out recently and said he's very worried about the threat that AI poses, not just to labor, because already 4,000 people have lost jobs from AI. But not just in labor, but also in, humanity in general. But again, June 12th, 2016. Remember the musical Hamilton? It's a musical by Lin-Manuel Miranda. He wrote all the music for Moana and some other Disney things, I think. But the music for Moana is so good. I wanna know how far it goes. Anyway, Hamilton, right? It was sort of a very innovative musical. Now, I have some historical bones to pick with it, but as far as the music, it really was compelling. It was a lot of rap, and the cast was mostly people of color, which is sort of ironic since most of the founding fathers owned other people. But it was still a very interesting play. On June 12th, 2016, it won 11 Tony Awards, which is very Mercury and Gemini. It's promoting that creative expression. On June 14th, just 2 days later of that same year, the first mammal was made extinct by human-driven climate change. Very sad. Now, you might think that's a terrible development, which it is, but the news of that is very grave. And hopefully it inspired and motivated a lot of people to take notice of the effects of climate change, because it really is an existential threat. It shouldn't be political because since when was why should the environment, why should human life be political? But here we are. I don't want to talk too much about that stuff, but you see. Now, June 23rd, again, same year, Britain votes for Brexit. Now, this is the opposite of connection, which we were just talking about, of Mercury and Gemini. This is a cleavage, but there was a square from Jupiter to Mercury at the time. Now, squares from Jupiter aren't all bad, necessarily. But there were a lot of people that wanted this to go through. And there was a lot of deception behind it. They were scaring people, that they would lose the national health and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, or that the EU was going to take away national health, rather. Which wasn't true. A whole nother thing. But what does this mean for all of us in general, for the community? Well, communication developments. That could be improvements in communication technologies. It could be new technologies in communication. I just saw some new operating systems or whatever that came from Apple that were really interesting. And again, this is new, very interesting stuff. And what else? I was trying to think if there were other communication things I noticed. Anyway, media developments. Whether it's with media companies or alternative media or both, because we have been seeing the decline of corporate mainstream media. Fox News was at the top and they're dwindling now. CNN is, they're below Newsmax, for those of you who even know what Newsmax is. Anyway, but there could also be more AI news, which there is. I just mentioned. We just heard about 4,000 people have lost their jobs or had their jobs displaced to AI. A lot of it is like writing, speaking, customer service, telemarketing. So now for you want to look at the house placement and what signs and houses for you Mercury rules. Remember, he rules Gemini and Virgo. So whatever whole sign houses those are for you, that's where you want to look. So we're going to go through a couple horoscopes here. Well, we're going to go through all 12 signs. Just very briefly. So let me pull up my little chart here. See here. Let's go back to Aries Rising. We want to start at the beginning. I'm a Taurus Mercury, so I do everything like linear and sequence. It's got to be very, you can look at my room. I'm not the most organized person in the world, but, I'm very particular about how I do things. It's got to be a sequence. First, we do this, and then we do this, and then we do that. Okay. So first, Aries Rising. Well, that means Mercury rules your third house and your sixth. So what do we expect to see here? Well, this could be more local activity. The third house is communication, speaking, writing, all that kind of thing. But it's also education. And it's your immediate community, your local area. So there could be a lot more local activity. You could deliver speeches or announcements. It could be at work or in the community. Because the sixth house is involved here, which is injuries, illnesses, enemies, all that sort of thing. It could be diagnoses, not necessarily bad, but diagnoses or notifications, calls from medical offices, or test results, lab test results, a biopsy result. Could be any one of those things. Now remember, this is from today, June 11th, to June 26th. So this is sort of a several week window in which you could notice some of these developments. Also, buying electronics, like health related electronics, like a Fitbit or a blood pressure gauge, or, like a nutrition app. People do calorie counting or whatever. These are just some possibilities. Now, let's move on to Taurus Rising, shall we? That means Mercury enters your second house and rules your fifth of children. So the second house is your money, your finances, your stuff, your livelihood. The fifth house is children, pleasure, sex. Because how do we make children? Anyway, it's so funny. I think of Snoop Dogg with this, because the second house, rolling down the street, sipping on, laid back, got my mind on my money and my money on my mind, right? That's what I think of with the second house Mercury thing, because Mercury is how we think also. So you could see spending money here on your kids' fifth house, right? Maybe spending more than you want to. So the interesting about this, well, if you don't have kids, it could be spending money on yourself and fun things for you. But the interesting thing about this is, we talk about spending money on our children, making them happy, but then Mars will go into Virgo, your fifth house, not soon after this. So that could be conflicts with children. Also, it's a time to treat yourself to something. You could also hear money news. So news about your finances or receive notices from your bank. It could be good stuff. I don't know. Refunds or whatever. Now, this is a quick transit, so it's nothing monumental. Okay. Now let's move on to Gemini, shall we? So for Gemini Rising, remember, these are all for your rising signs. Rising signs. Not your sun, not your moon, your rising. I mean, if you know what? If you really want to, if you have no idea about your rising sign, you can kind of look at your sun sign, but I really urge you to look at this for your rising sign. Anyway, you may, and remember, this is Gemini Rising here. This is lots of mental activity, right? Which you already do, but you may not look outwardly busy because Mercury rules your first house and your fourth. But you'll feel busy on the inside. The first house is you, right? You and mind, body, spirit. The fourth house is your living situation, the home, the family, the origins, your father. So, this could be just having great ideas, Mercury in the first house. Inspiration, but also contemplative. The fourth house, it's the deepest, darkest part of our chart. It's also the mysteries. It's the things we hold dear, valuables. You see? So inspiration, but contemplative inspiration. Perhaps you have the need to seclude yourself a little bit or want to be left alone. And again, there could be health news regarding parents or family or grandparents. Fourth house. Now let's move on to Cancer. So for Cancer Rising, Mercury enters the 12th house and rules the third. The 12th house ain't fun, right? There could be difficult news regarding a sibling or maybe extended family like an aunt, uncle, or cousin. It could be your own mental health struggles. Or maybe even relief from mental health struggles. Or maybe mental health struggles with friends or family, right? Third house. You may be needing You may be needing to take time out from the busyness to think, to process things. Or you may just feel like a pariah in your own community. It doesn't have to be bad stuff. There's also the healing nature of seclusion, which I often talk about. So now we go to Leo rising, and this means Mercury entered your 11th house and rules your second. It could be friends paying you back or reciprocating if you've been generous. It could be getting job opportunities through a friend, promoting a business or advertising, making content, setting financial goals or plans. Like, by the end of this month, I want to be X. By the end of this year, I want to be Y. Or maybe you're just in a time of prominence, right? Because, Jupiter's in your 10th house. So I expect this to be auspicious type stuff. Okay. So congratulations, Leo. You have a couple good houses going on here for you. Now, Virgo rising. I really like this Virgo rising because Mercury rules your 10th house. Mercury's entering your 10th house and rules it. But Mercury also rules your first house. Remember, these are angular houses, so they're extra powerful. Okay, so this is very auspicious for recognition, promotions, or new opportunities over the next few weeks. Employers may see you as a very desirable employee. You could see raises, rewards, or praise of some sort. They're not really giving out many raises these days. It's usually like, well done. Or, here's a shirt with our company logo. It could be changing careers or exploring new directions. You might ask yourself, what do I want to do? What is it that I want to do? Now, moving on to Libra. Libra rising. Mercury's entering your 9th house and rules your 12th. This is deep, and you may want to be alone to consider big questions. You could be considering what you believe and perhaps exploring new ways of thinking, new philosophies, religion, or a spiritual practice. This may be a challenge though. And why? Because it could feel like you're losing what you hold dear. It's the 12th house influence. The 12th house ain't fun, like we said. It could also be that new beliefs or realizing that old beliefs don't suit you anymore is very destabilizing. It often feels like the rug's ripped out from under us. But it's also very exciting because you're learning new things. You're experiencing new things. It's exciting. There's exciting new ideas probably coming to you, or exciting new ways of understanding. So how about Scorpio rising? Well, Mercury's entering your 8th house and rules your 11th. So, do friends owe you money? Or maybe they're going to ask to borrow some money or for some kind of help. And I wouldn't think of it as terrible because these are all wonderful placements, you see. Well, the 8th is difficult. The 8th is a little difficult. It could be you asking to borrow money because, the 8th, other people's money. Or maybe because the 11th house is involved. And the 11th house is what? It's hopes, wishes, dreams, what you want to do. But it's also friends and people who help you, benefactors, people who help you do what you want to do, who support you and push you along. So you may have been considering, the 8th house is also fear. So you may have been considering doing something you've always wanted to do, but have been too afraid. I'm never going skydiving. My dad was a paratrooper in Vietnam. He used to have nightmares about falling his whole life until he went to Vietnam and jumped out of a plane the first time. I'm deathly scared of heights. I'm not going up. I'm not doing it. But if you had something like that on your bucket list, I don't have a bucket list, really. I don't know. Maybe there's a couple of things, but something that you've been thinking of that you want to try, and you finally get the gumption to try it. The eighth house is also crime, so maybe you're planning a heist. I mean, I'm half joking. The Italian job. But there are people who do silly things like this that I would associate with this transit. There was a guy who was selling fake insulin to people. I mean, how horrible. But you see, those are the kinds of criminal activities that could be infiltrating that Mercury in Gemini business-minded quality. Well, how about Sagittarius? So Mercury's entering your 7th house. Oh, let's fast forward here. Sagittarius. Mercury's entered your 7th house here and rules your 10th. So this is also very auspicious. Maybe you're going to be introduced to a new business partner or boss, and I would expect that person to be more of a beneficent boss. Just don't develop any relationships with authority figures like bosses or college professors, because that could come back to bite you in the butt. So, I mean, really anyone with authority, as I said. These are very, very potent angular houses. Remember, the 10th and the 7th. The angular houses are the 1st, 10th, 7th, 4th. This could be something to do with a spouse or partner too. I mean, it could be a spouse or partner that, I just hit my mic. It could be a spouse or partner that gets recognition or a promotion or something like that. Okay. Now let's move on to Capricorn. So for Capricorn Rising, Mercury's entering your 6th house and rules your 9th. Are you hard at work at school? Is it hard to keep up? Does it feel like there's not enough time to get all your work done? It could feel like that for a couple of weeks. It could feel like having to focus and put your nose to the grindstone. Be diligent, consistent, and follow through. You may be inclined to have political, religious, or philosophical debates. Just be careful because people are very high-strung right now. You could be taking up a new spiritual practice, but something that takes effort and consistency. It doesn't mean like whenever I feel like doing this, right? Oh, I suddenly feel like meditating. No, you got to set alarms. You got to do it on a regular basis every day. Even if you do it for 2 minutes or whatever, it's got to be regular. It's got to be consistent. It's got to be something you're putting effort in all the time. If you're going to reap anything from it, and you can never look for results. If you start looking for results, you're going to have expectations. When you have expectations, you miss the reality of what is and the other possibilities. Let's move on to Aquarius Rising, my rising. So this means Mercury's entering our 5th house and rules our 8th. Again, this is spending money on our kids. Again, probably more than we want, and probably on credit cards. But they'll probably be very happy. For example, it was my daughter's birthday weekend, and I spent a lot of money. But she is very happy, and she loved all of her things. But, now I have to be good for a long time because I was a little wackadoodle. But I also spent money on myself, because it was just my birthday. And you could spend money on fun things and pleasurable things, which I did do. I'm not going to tell you what I bought, but it was fun. Do you not have children? Well, you may have an opportunity for some taboo or unsavory fun. Of course, if it's safe, sane, and consensual. Safe, sane, and consensual. That's the 3 rules. Spend money on yourself, right? Fun things for yourself. I mentioned here buying intimate playthings. I don't know if I can elaborate. I don't know. I wish I had someone I could talk to about what's allowed on here. Oh, the other thing I thought of is buying weapons. Yeah, buying weapons. Because the eighth house, right? The eighth house is death, and therefore also rules the instruments of such. So there's a lot of that these days. Now let's get to Pisces rising. So Pisces rising, that means Mercury's entering your fourth house and rules your seventh. Again, we have angular houses here because Pisces is what? A mutable sign. So the four mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. So if you have a mutable rising sign, then this will be a very potent transit for you. So you may discuss a partner moving in with you or vice versa. Maybe you're moving in with someone. Maybe you're looking for a new place to live, probably together with a partner, or maybe you're looking for a realtor. Maybe it's working out of the home. We could also see business partnerships or legal disputes with our parents or family. A parent could introduce us to their new partner or meet a new partner. Sometimes it's exciting. I mean, that's always exciting, especially, I know my mom, anyway, I won't go into personal stuff with this because I don't want to get myself in trouble. Anyway, but those are possibilities. I mean, our parents are people too. They have needs and desires and everything else. So it's good that they should meet people. Now, I hope these horoscopes were useful. And I tried to touch on as much as I could within a reasonable time frame. And thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. It's really, really helps me out with the algorithm. So like, subscribe, and comment below. Okay? I do wonderful readings, so look below in the description for all of my contact information. And I love you and have a wonderful whatever you're having.